Florida Blois, and this is my video study comparison for the Mercy in Action Health History 201 course. I looked at is titled Environmental Toxins and Infertility, and the purpose of this study was to evaluate the causes of increasing fertility rates by examining endocrine disruptors, chemicals, heavy metals, and air pollutants. The second study is titled Tampon Use, Environmental Chemicals, and Oxidative Stress in the Biocycle Study. The purpose of this study is to assess whether tampon use is related to increased metal concentrations in blood and to assess the association between tampon use and blood biomarker levels for inflammation and oxidative stress, which in turn could lead to infertility. So the first study I looked at is an observational cross-sectional study with 501 infertile couples in the U.S. Blood level samples were taken both in the infertile men and women, and then the samples were analyzed for chemical, pollutant, and metal concentrations. There is concluding evidence from the study to support the fact that heavy metals do damage fertility. Air pollutants cause infertility, and the contaminants in drinking water as well as endocrine disruptors can damage fertility. So the first study I looked at was done with 259 healthy, regularly menstruating women who self-reported their menstrual cycle lengths between 21 and 35 days for the past 6 months. And they filled out a self-questionnaire. And then statistics were calculated for demographic characteristics, metals, and oxidative stress and inflammation biomarkers by the tampon use during this study. This study found suggestive evidence that women who used tampons had increased levels of mercury and oxidative stress biomarkers during different times of their menstrual cycle, but the increases were not very statistically significant. This slide is looking at the assessment for internal and external validity. So study number 1, internal. The validity is moderate. There are 2 variables being assessed in the study to correlate to one another. There is strong suggestive evidence, though. This study does include male and female participants, and there are no specifics on the infertility linked to the sex of the participant. For external validity, it is moderate to high. There are several studies done to correlate exposure to infertility, though they're either outdated or have much smaller sample sizes. So the second study, the internal validity is pretty weak. It's a smaller sample size, and data was collected via self-reported questionnaires, so there is a lot of room for error. And the external validity is fair to weak. Not many studies on this topic are with human participants. So all in all, more research needs to be conducted to bring forth greater evidence. I believe there is not enough studies that do so. So both of these studies are on the right track for paving the way for further research. My thoughts on the benefit of future research is that these studies could greatly benefit women and couples who wish to conceive in the future, given the evidence that the studies provide. They could potentially change consumer habits and give menstruating women knowledge and power, knowing what they put into their bodies and the effects it can have on their reproductive organs. I also think that these studies could potentially change the feminine hygiene product industry and regulations, as the FDA views tampons as medical advice and will allow for quote-unquote safe quantities of toxins. So for this reason, I think these studies could potentially increase regulations on tampons. And here are my references that I used. Thank you so much for your time and for watching.